Yo, what is going on, guys? Flashverse here, and welcome back to another video on The Flash Season 7. And this will be my review and breakdown for The Flash Season 7, Episode 7, titled Growing Pains. And yeah, we had some very interesting things happening during this episode, which I just cannot wait to talk about and give you guys my overall thoughts on. Now, for those who don't know, next week there is no episode 8. The Flash is on a 3-week break, so episode 8 will pick up during May the 4th, so Star Wars Day, I guess. Just to give you guys my quick initial thoughts on this episode before I actually go in more detail. This episode was a filler episode, and it seems like it will be a two-parter filler episode because episode 8 will continue right from the events where this episode left off. So it seems like episodes 7 and 8 will be filler, and then episodes 9, 10, and 11 will continue on with the Force's storyline itself. But to be honest, I didn't really mind it being a filler episode. Obviously, I would have preferred it if it was more connected to the story, but this one was one of those, more good and more enjoyable filler episodes. And from the synopsis for this episode, we were obviously able to tell that this was going to be some sort of filler episode going into it, since it was going to be centered around Frost. But yeah, we did have some pretty interesting interactions going on between Barry and the Speed Force as well. We obviously got introduced to the villain known as Chillblaine, who got teased that he was going to be appearing, and this was obviously the episode where he will be appearing. And we do know that he will be coming back for more episodes. That was confirmed. He wasn't supposed to be a one episode thing. He will be back eventually. However, despite all the good stuff which this episode contained, which I will obviously get into more detail during my review and breakdown in just a second, this episode did have quite a bit of issues, and it's mainly centered around the Speed Force, and once again I'll get into that in just a bit. But obviously, for those who haven't seen the episode, spoiler alert, because this is a review and breakdown after all, so I'll be breaking down the episode bit by bit. So yeah, it does include some major spoilers, which you certainly wouldn't want to hear from me. So if you haven't seen the episode yet, go watch the episode and come back later for this review and breakdown. But for those who are staying, be sure to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel so you are aware of more Arrowverse content coming your way. Okay, so this episode kicks off with Barry speeding into the loft, and he basically grabbed some food with him, only to find out that there's different variations of food ready on the table. And obviously Iris didn't cook that because, yeah, we know how she is with pancakes. It's not very good. And who is this master chef who is cooking all of this? Well, it's the Speed Force. Now, the thing with the Speed Force was that they brought in Nora Allen as the embodiment of the Speed Force, and they're basically establishing this more human attribute to the Speed Force, which I didn't mind last week. But in this episode, they, pushed it for me. Like, seeing the Speed Force cook and eat makes no sense at all. May I remind you guys, this is not a human being. This is a cosmic source of energy. Picture as like gravity eating food, for example. It just doesn't make sense. So although I don't mind them giving her like an actual human embodiment, I really don't like how they're pushing it so that she's adapting to be more human rather than being this source of energy which provides our speedsters speed. So yeah, that was something I really didn't like, and it was something that frustrated me. But while Barry is nearby the Speed Force, his powers begin to glitch out, and he's basically out of control from his speed. Basically we have his hand vibrating and stuff. And during the episode, we find out that the Speed Force, while in her human form, is able to act like this battery to Barry. She can pretty much overcharge Barry to a point where he is out of control, pretty much conveying that Barry is way faster and just way more powerful than ever when the Speed Force is next to him. But yeah, due to Barry being so out of control with his powers, the glass of the orange juice shatters and spills all over Barry. Now, one thing which was very interesting to see was that Barry is avoiding the Speed Force towards the start of the episode, and he does hesitate to call it Nora as well. He still calls it the Speed Force, where in the same time, Iris calls the Speed Force Nora. And it seems like, Barry is bothered by this. So that was an addition which I really liked and I found pretty interesting. But yeah, there's a crime scene, so Barry has to go. And the Speed Force wants to come too. And again, I had this issue again. But Barry just responds to her by saying that she should stay put and just, not interfere with what he's doing. he says that it could just end up being a small incident, you never know, so he should just go alone and check it out. But we then head over to Star Labs and we have Cecile reading the past crimes of Killer Frost to the team. And yeah, Frost isn't too happy about this. She mentions that she's a changed person, she's no longer Killer Frost. But Cecile says that although she has become a hero recently, past crimes don't go away. So to avoid trouble, Frost needs to stay put. And that was obviously what Joe warned her about during last episode. But yeah, she was being ignorant about it and she's still going to be ignorant during this episode. We then head to a crime scene and we have Chester, who is very excited about this. And we also have Barry and Joe investigating the crime scene to see what's happening. And yeah, there is a murder and it's done by someone with icy powers and they stole a microchip from Ivo Labs. But we then have Kristen Kramer walking in and as soon as she sees the van covered in ice, she just takes Frost as number one suspect. And she mentions that nobody else has ice meta power, so it's got to be Frost. But we also have Barry, Joe and Chester trying to defend Frost. However, they also need to act like they don't know her as a person, so they can't really say much, resulting them not being able to defend her properly. So yeah, they need to prove her innocence through evidence showing that Frost wasn't responsible for what happened during that crime scene. And we have Barry doing more CSI work as he analyzes the crime scenes and stuff. And I absolutely loved it. It was probably my favorite part of the episode. I just really missed Barry doing the CSI stuff so much, and I'm just so happy that they brought it back. But then we have the Speed Force arriving and it's acting strange for some reason, and it continuously just, builds up the suspicion we had established from last episode. And Barry warns her to not appear because there are multiple cops around her and she has the face of Nora Allen, and her being at a crime scene while looking like Nora Allen, well, that wouldn't make too much sense, would it? But Barry's speed once again starts glitching out, and that is obviously due to the Speed Force's presence. And once again, Barry's out of control. His speed goes crazy, and he bumps into Kristen Kramer's car. And yeah, Kristen's suspicious, and Barry covers it up by saying that he's able to track down some footprints. So that was a great cover up, and we have Kristen praising Barry, saying like, oh, okay, that was great work, I really like that. But we then have Frost wanting to clear her name, so she leaves Star Labs and heads over to the bar where she used to work during season 4. And she meets with this bartender who goes by the name of Mark. And he's really nice towards the start. Like, our general first impressions of him was like, that he seemed like a nice guy. But obviously that was a facade, as we find out later on. Us as the viewers already knew that he was the one behind the murder. We knew that he was going to be Chillblaine. But Kristen Kramer on TV then offers a reward for anyone who's able to find Frost, and it was $100,000. And this results to people at the bar noticing that Frost is at the bar. And we get this pretty cool fight scene. It was very well choreographed, and I liked how Frost was using her abilities during the mix as well. It was something that was very cool. But Mark also helps out Frost taking down the last bad guy, in which we find out that Frost becomes attracted to Mark, aka Chillblaine. But we then head to Barry at his lab and he's working on the case, and we have the Speed Force arriving and basically offers some help. And almost seems like she's purposely glitching Barry's speed, or at least that's what it seems like to me. I just don't know why. But Chester wants to work with the Speed Force to get things done a lot quickly, but Barry just doesn't want her help. And Barry begins to lose control of his speed again, and he's overwhelmed by the power and the speed he's getting. And once again, he's speeding away due to how overcharged and how out of control he is. And that just leads to Barry having enough. He's so frustrated as what happened to him with his speed glitching results into the evidence which helps clear Frost getting destroyed. So Barry's not really happy about this, and Barry just keeps saying he never asked for help, so stop trying to come for me for help to the Speed Force. But then Chester ends up getting a call, and yeah, the CCPD are after Frost. Now we then have Frost going to an abandoned warehouse to find the person responsible for framing her, but finds nothing. But we also have this camera scanning her, which obviously allows Chillblaine to basically copy her powers. But something that caught me off guard was Caitlin gets arrested due to her matching with Frost, and the CCPD are basically suspicious that they are the same person because somebody told them that they were the same person, in which Chillblaine knew that Caitlin and Frost were the same person. At least now that they're separate entities, they are no longer the same person. But lucky enough, Frost and Caitlin are separated, Caitlin will be free when no meta DNA is present, because now that Frost and Caitlin are split, she's no longer a metahuman. And we also have Frost wanting to, bust Caitlin out of CCPD, but Caitlin says no, don't do it, in which we then have Frost going after Chillblaine. We then get this talk between Barry and Iris, and basically Barry's talking about how he's being so repelled towards the Speed Force, and not even referring to it as Nora. And Iris pretty much talks about how the two have grown. It was a pretty decent talk. I didn't pay too much attention to it, so I didn't really know what was going on. But Barry then gets an alert that Chester has found the meta and what he has been doing, in which we head over to Star Labs, and Chester mentions that someone is using artificial dark matter to copy somebody's abilities, in which Frost headed somewhere, which Barry knows the location because he obviously knew that Caitlin used to work at that bar. But this leads to Frost confronting Mark or Chillblaine, and Chillblaine mentions that he's been watching Frost for a while now and that he knows most things about her. And Frost basically confronts Mark about setting her up, and we get this small backstory of Chillblaine, not much, but he basically mentions that he used to work at Ivo Labs and he created this microchip which belonged to him. And because he got fired, he had to end up stealing that microchip, and that leads to him revealing himself as Chillblaine. And then we have him having these cool gloves where his bracelets basically turn into a glove, and these gloves basically allow him to copy Frost's powers. But we then end up getting this great fight scene between the two characters. It was really entertaining to watch. I really enjoyed it. And Chillblaine eventually gets the better of Frost as he's able to blind her using his ice abilities. And Frost was blinded, so she couldn't really see what was going on, but she knew that Chillblaine was behind her, and that leads to her extending the dagger which she had on her hand, and that leads to Chillblaine getting stabbed. And yeah, that was a pretty cool takedown in my opinion. But while that happens, we then have Barry and Allegra arriving to the scene. We then have Chillblaine being sent to Iron Heights, but he is not dead. We do know that he's still alive because he will be back for more episodes. That was confirmed. He was confirmed to have a multiple episode arc and not just a one-off appearance. But we then have Kristen Kramer arriving, and basically she surrounds the bar with the metahuman task force, and once again she's after Killer Frost. And Frost comes into the conclusion that she just should turn herself in so that nobody else would have to cover for her, and also that she has to pay for her past crimes. And this leads to Frost surrendering and she becomes arrested, which obviously leaves Kristen Kramer happy about this. But yeah, obviously episodes 7 and 8 are a two-parter, and obviously we will have to wait 3 weeks to find out what happens. But yeah, I am very interested to see how this plays out. Will Frost actually get arrested and go to prison, or will she be set free? But the Speed Force and Barry then end up making up, and his powers are no longer glitching. Barry seems to be more in control of his powers. Yeah, I'm just very interested to see where all of this Speed Force storyline goes as well. But overall, this was a pretty good episode. I really enjoyed lots of things we had. I did have some issues, but the strengths of the episodes definitely outweighed the issues. Barry doing the CSI stuff was so much fun. The Frost and Chillblaine storyline was pretty interesting too. So overall, for this episode, I will give an 8 out of 10. But yeah guys, thanks for watching. If you guys have enjoyed the video, please give a like and subscribe. Tell me in the comment section down below whether you guys like this episode or not. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video.